Welcome to the Crypto and Blockchain Talk.
Hello.
Hey.
Guten Tag.
Aloha.
Hola. Shalom.
Hello.
Namaste.
Ni hao.
Privet.
Hello.
Salut. Yassas.
Salve.
Ciao.
Bonjour. Our podcast talks about the latest trends in the worlds of cryptocurrencies and the blockchain. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Crypto and Blockchain Talk. Now, today with me, I have Todd Van Cleave, and the name of his project, the name of his blockchain, is Petrachor. So, before we go any further, let me first say hello and welcome to Crypto and Blockchain Talk, Todd. Todd, hello.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be a great show we have today.
Awesome. Yes, it is going to be a great show. And for any of you who are new to the podcast, my name is Aviva Õunap. I am the host of Crypto and Blockchain Talk. So, you're the kind of person, the kind of innovator that I love. Most blockchains, though, especially when they were launched in the ICO period of crypto, which was around 2016 and 17, which is, there were some that were released in 15, but really 16, 17 was the heyday. They would raise a lot of money and then they'd go out there and the developers would do their thing, which is what that's where you would fall under. And then, of course, they have marketing teams, etc., who go out there and push this. And you've pretty much bootstrapped this whole thing yourself. So without any further ado, what I first want to do is talk about yourself and how you actually got to the idea of creating this. And then we'll talk about your blockchain and talk about what the uses are and who would want to actually be using it, quite frankly. So without further ado, tell us about your background and how you arrived and at creating Petrachor and what that whole mission and experience was.
Sure. Well, originally, my business experience was in credit card processing and small business loans. So I was very familiar with how, online and retail merchants would conduct transactions and all the inefficiencies and costs involved with doing that. I was very familiar with financing. My degree is in finance. And so I understood that we also had a lot of inefficiencies with the way lending was done in this country. So I wasn't real thrilled with the way things were, but that was the system, and so I had to work within those constraints. So I was always interested in looking at ways to make things better for business owners specifically. So when blockchain came around, it certainly piqued my interest, and I wanted to see what kind of possibilities there were for blockchain to make improvements in these areas. So of course, I was an early believer in Bitcoin, and then later in 2015, 2016, started learning about Ethereum and the possibilities of smart contracts and being able to write, scripts and programs on top of a blockchain. And that's what sort of unleashed what you were just talking about, the whole ICO madness of 2016, 2017. During that time, I was just sort of living on a ranch, raising livestock, and so I wasn't, going to conventions and, really talking to a whole lot of people at that time, but I was able to kind of observe what was going on and see, what we could possibly do with Petrachor to improve on certain areas in blockchain.
So you came up then one day while tending your livestock. I have this little house in the prairie ideal going on in my head. And all of a sudden you said to yourself, I need to start developing Petrachor. This is what I was put on this earth for. But how did you leap into into actually creating a blockchain? And also, which blockchains did you look at and think, we can do better than this?
Right. So I quickly realized that blockchain was not as simple as I thought it was. There are very, very smart people in the world that are working on blockchain that know so much more than me in terms of the cryptography and, all the development work, the engineering work that's involved with it. And so I quickly realized I knew nothing, and I had a lot to learn. So I tried to surround myself with a few people that I thought had the expertise and the ability to implement some, novel ideas to create something new, something different. So looking at like Bitcoin and Ethereum at the time, we just tried to kind of look at some of the things that weren't possible with those blockchains. Like with Bitcoin, I realized it wasn't possible for me to mine Bitcoin from my laptop because I needed a specialized computer in order to do that efficiently. I couldn't really run an Ethereum node because I needed probably a 2 terabyte hard drive at the time and probably a faster processor to just keep my node in sync with the chain. So immediately we saw some things that need to be improved on. So looking at other projects, we looked at Blackcoin, which had a nice proof-of-stake concept on it. And then, of course, we looked at Ethereum, which had this smart contract platform. And so we ended up forking the C++ client of Ethereum to start with. And then we started massaging that a little bit to replace the cryptography and replace the consensus with a proof-of-stake consensus that was loosely based off of Blackcoin, but it was a complete custom implementation with a whole different design that had never been implemented before.
So this is a proprietary layer 1 solution. This is from your own back.
Correct. So of course we borrowed some code from Ethereum, just like Ethereum's borrowed a lot of code from, other previous projects. So did Bitcoin. Everybody kind of takes open source code, puts it together, and creates new ideas. And that's sort of what we did, except for the consensus on Petrachor, which was all custom code that we created.
Right. Okay. So you created the Petrachor, and what is the whole purpose? Why will people want to use Petrachor? That's the first question.
Well, the goal of Petrachor is to have the most scalable blockchain in the world. And I talk about scalability not in terms of transactions, but in terms of usability for the most people in the world to be able to run their own blockchain node and stake their own coins on the network or mine the network, as you would say in proof of work.
Okay, but you guys are, like you said before, you're proof of stake. Yeah? So proof of stake does require normally quite a bit in terms of staking. It's not small beans we're talking about. You normally have to stake quite a bit of money in order to have a stake on the platform. So how does that run with Petrachor?
Well, yeah, if you look at some other projects like Avalanche, which is an Ethereum fork, or Ethereum's 2.0 version, they both have minimums required in order to stake on the network. And with Petrachor, we have absolutely no minimums whatsoever to stake on the network. And you could kind of assimilate that to Bitcoin, where, yes, I could mine Bitcoin via proof of work from my laptop at home. I will probably not get anywhere with it. It'll be a complete waste of time, but I could do it. And same thing with Petrachor. Yeah, I could have a fraction of 1 PTA on my laptop at home and stake it, and you probably won't get anywhere. So yes, your probabilities are very low if you have a small amount, and your probabilities of earning a block reward increase as your balance of PTA increases.
Okay, so that's a pretty unique thing in itself, that there's not this astronomical figure that you need to stake in order to be a staker on a blockchain. Now, in terms of actually in terms of masternodes and running masternodes, how does that work?
We do not have any masternodes on Petrachor. Masternodes are usually used to sort of create a semi-centralized layer on top of blockchain to increase transaction speed and volume, and we do not have that. What we're going to be looking to do is add something called Hypercore, which would be our layer 2 implementation for increasing transaction throughput and transaction speed.
Okay, so when's Hypercore? When are you looking to release this high throughput subnetwork?
Well, fortunately, Petrachor is 100% compatible with the Ethereum virtual machine. So all of the layer 2 projects that are probably being funded by the Ethereum Foundation or otherwise that are being built and developed for Ethereum can immediately be applied to Petrachor. So we're going to kind of let this play out, I guess, on Ethereum between Starkware, Arbitrum, Optimism, Loopring, ZK Sync, and see what the market sort of gravitates toward. And then we'll probably, take ideas from that project and create our own custom version of it and put that onto Petrachor.
Okay, so in terms of the scalability and this security of what you have, it's obviously something where you are up there and making sure that this is being implemented in which ways? How are you ensuring this?
Are we talking about on our settlement layer with Petrachor?
Yes.
Or more on okay.
With Petrachor.
Well, with Petrachor, you have the same trilemma of every other blockchain. You have speed, security, and scalability. And you can't optimize for all three, ever. So when you look at a project like Solana, they have obviously tried to optimize for speed. And recently, was it 2 days ago, we saw that the network went down for about 8 hours.
Which was a big deal, a huge deal.
Right, because when we think about a blockchain, especially a proof-of-work blockchain, have we ever seen a proof-of-work blockchain have a downtime? I don't believe so.
No.
We've seen double spends, but it's virtually impossible for a proof-of-work blockchain to have downtime because you're always mining the network and you're always adding new blocks. And even if miners leave and the difficulty is very high relative to the target time, it's just going to take longer. Like in Bitcoin, you have 10-minute blocks, and if a whole bunch of miners leave, like what happened when China shut down mining, you're just going to maybe have 1 hour blocks until the block time or the block difficulty resets. So it doesn't go down. It just affects how quickly new blocks are added to the chain. So with Petrachor, we've mimicked the proof of work design where miners are creating hashes or proofs of work and trying to find a hash that exceeds a certain difficulty. And once they exceed that certain difficulty with their hash, they're able to add a block to the network, to the chain. So in theory, with Petrachor, unlike Solana, we will never have downtime with Petrachor, and you'll have a perfectly secure environment for people to run applications and make other transactions.
Okay, so one of the things you told me you're most proud of is the aerial protocol. And I'd like for you to explain this in a way that a 5-year-old will understand.
Okay. I kind of touched on it a little bit with that previous response, but so with the aerial consensus, Petrachor's proof of stake consensus, it gives you the ability for an unlimited number of individuals to stake the network, just like proof of work. You can do this with basically any type of hardware, just whatever desktop or laptop you have at home sitting around or any cloud server. It takes about one thread of a CPU and a couple hundred megabytes of RAM. And that scales infinitely. So regardless of the number of coins you have in your account that you're sticking with, it has no impact on the hardware requirements. You have absolutely no minimum balances, no locked funds, so you can spend coins at any time. A lot of other proof-of-stake networks lock your funds in there for weeks or months at a time. And you can do this on a very slow internet connection. So you could, theoretically, with 30-minute block times, you could even run a Petrachor node on the moon, potentially even Mars, if you were out that far.
How cool would that be?
and stake your coins from there. Because again, it's kind of like proof of work where you can leave and return to the network anytime you want. You could even run these hashes offline. And if you find a hash meeting that difficulty, you could bring your node online and submit that hash and mine a block. So this is scalability, meaning it can scale to millions and millions of users, millions of nodes, millions of stakers who can all secure the network at the same time. So the probability, as we talked about before, of earning a block is relative to the stake of your account as opposed to how fast your CPU can create hashes. So again, just like Bitcoin, Petrachor miners generate a proof of work, but they're rate limited to 1 hash per second. So mining can be performed on almost any device, and it keeps it fair for everybody. So people who don't have really expensive equipment or access to expensive equipment can mine with the same probabilities of earning a block reward as anybody else.
So the result of anyone staking Petrachor means they can do this with only a single node, and they're going to be guaranteed to receive the same share of what you've pretty much the pie. Yeah, no matter how large the pie gets, which is pretty much word for word what you told me. Go ahead.
So yeah, right. So if you own 1% of the network, for example, of the PTA in the network, every year you will still own 1% of the network. So I would call this not inflationary or deflationary, but it's constant that everyone continues to own the exact same proportion of the network all the time.
That's pretty cool. So I know that you have ideals, long-term goals with Petrachor. And this goes back to your love for everything to do with small businesses, you said. And you want to integrate things like payments, invoicing, payroll, because you want to compete, if not overtake, what's going on in the traditional finance and banking, the centralized banking universe that's already in existence out there. So what is the game plan then in terms of that happening? Is that like how does that fit into your development schedule? Are you first waiting until everything with Ethereum 2.0 is out there and looking at Hypercore and how Hypercore sits on Petrachor? How do you see all of this coming together in the long run?
It has to start with Hypercore, our layer 2 solution, because that's what's going to provide that user experience that people need and people want, and that is instant transaction confirmations, just the ability to have a user experience similar to what they have with credit cards. So you can think of Petrachor as being like a bank. It's sort of the infrastructure. It's where the security is. And then you can think of Hypercore as your credit cards, which is where we use for commerce, where we can make instant payments. It's easy. It's convenient. So that has to be first. Once we have Hypercore, we can then add other cool things like an NFT marketplace or blockchain games, or build out the merchant infrastructure needed so that retail and online merchants can add Petrachor acceptance to their payment systems, handle accounting, handle taxes, handle payroll, and everything directly through our web app.
That would be awesome because, there's a lot of businesses who, first of all, don't even understand what blockchain can do. And second of all, if blockchain can offer them solutions which will outcompete the current solutions they're using in their businesses you've developed here, I mean, you're already in the idea section alone, and already with what you've developed with Petrachor, you've already outpaced them. So, it's very much in the vein of this whole thing with climate change and everything else, that everything to do with corporate social responsibility or being green in general as a company, it's a really big thing. And there's just been lately some articles which have been written about how Ethereum 2.0 ranks worst in energy consumption, because in some research, which was undertaken by University College London, they assess the energy consumptions of some leading proof-of-stake networks, and they concluded that Ethereum 2.0 pretty much sucks, that it's really quite bad, and they have detailed this out in a paper that they wrote. And basically what their research revealed was that the biggest interplay was between the number of active network validators and the scale of environmental consumption. And that means that if these network, if they're supposed to reduce energy consumption and environmental impact, it's going to be necessary to focus efforts on the design choices of the architecture of things like Ethereum 2.0 and the efficiency of the hardware which is used by the validators. So given what University of London has come up with and their statement about Ethereum 2.0, which of course will be picked up on probably if this report gets out enough, it's going to be picked up because of course anything to do with climate and climate change is going to be made into some kind of newsworthy article. What do you have to say about that, and how? I've got to ask you this because, you're talking about being relatable to businesses as a blockchain. So first of all, what do you think about that kind of piece of news? And how do you think you can address it as Petrachor?
Well, I think environmental responsibility is good. Unfortunately, most businesses are focused on making money and not taking care of the environment. So I'm not sure how likely that is to happen. Even if you look at Bitcoin mining right now, I don't even know that a miner for Bitcoin in a professional setup could tell you what cryptography is or how Bitcoin works. They do not care. They only care about, earning block rewards.
Absolutely.
And paying their electric bill. And that's about it. Every report that you're going to see about energy consumption is always going to be biased. It's like reading a report from the tobacco company saying that it's good for you because they paid the researchers to put together that study. So a lot of the more environmentally friendly proof-of-stake networks are more or less centralized and permission networks. They're not out in the open the way Petrachor is or the way Ethereum or Bitcoin is. So, of course, when you have a permission network, it's going to be easier for them to run it with a small set of nodes, a small set of validators, and say that they're more energy efficient. For example, we don't have a ton of nodes running on Petrachor, so I can easily say with confidence that Petrachor is the most environmentally friendly proof-of-stake network in the world. I'm sure it is, because it's just not very well known yet, and not a ton of people are using it yet.
So based on that, yes, it would be.
So I guess Petrachor wins in this study. It should actually be number one.
Yeah, but I would also think you'd win just based on the fact that you don't need these supermatic, hydromatic, grease lightning kinds of computers and, ASICs and everything to do what you need to do in order to be part of the blockchain.
You don't need anything. You could dig up the oldest, crustiest computer you have in your house from 20 years ago and run a Petrachor node on there very easily. You could probably do it on a dial-up modem. Like I said, you could do it on such a slow connection that you could be as far away as the moon and the space station and sit there and keep a node in sync using same technology we had back from Apollo 13. You basically need slightly more than a calculator to stake coins on Petrachor.
So how do you see then the whole ideal of DeFi? Because DeFi, everything in DeFi pretty much is run on Ethereum. Yeah. So based on that and based on how you seem to have a lot of unique selling points, which kind of outshine Ethereum in many ways, can you see yourself as becoming the backbone to maybe a new set of DeFi products?
Absolutely. It's certainly possible. And, 3 years or 5 years, if people start getting tired of design decisions from Vitalik, that they might be looking to move over to different chains, such as Petrachor. Like I said before, we're EVM compatible, so that would be a very easy thing for most applications to do. We're just going to try and create an environment that's easy for everybody to use. We're going to make it very user-friendly. We're going to make it very secure, and we want people to come over. So one thing about Ethereum 2.0 that's interesting is that they're going to be using the same cryptography that we integrated with Petrachor 4 or 5 years ago.
Wow.
Which is the BLS signature scheme with the BLS 12381 elliptic curve. And so that's going to create some interoperability enhancements for us so that it might be even easier for projects to migrate over to Petrachor.
So I just want to do one thing, though, because we are an educational podcast. You actually mentioned EVM, which is the Ethereum virtual machine. Can you again do your explanation to a 5-year-old of what the Ethereum virtual machine is?
Sure. I mean, it's basically just a computer, like what you have, a laptop or phone or desktop or something. It's just a computer that runs on top of a blockchain. So just like any application that you would use on your phone or your desktop, you write a program that runs a specific set of instructions, and instead of running it on a centralized computer or, a personal computer, you run it on a decentralized blockchain. And so this means that you can make applications that are supposedly unstoppable that will just run forever. And once you write this code to create this program or application, it runs on a blockchain, so it runs forever. Anybody can create these applications and launch these applications on any decentralized network. And you don't need permission from anyone to do that. I can launch an application on Petrachor or Ethereum right now. And you can, and anybody can, as long as you have some understanding of how Solidity works and how blockchains work. You can launch that. So decentralization is something the internet always has, always will have, because it allows you to launch blockchains on the internet. It allows you to build websites or email servers or anything. The internet's always been decentralized, but now we have that concept for specific applications.
I think we should try one more with you, which is UTXO, which the acronym for unspent transaction output. Can you actually give a definition of that for the listeners?
Sure. So can I contrast that with accounts?
Of course you can.
The two different styles.
I absolutely. You know what? You read my mind.
Okay, so with blockchain, the two most prevalent types of sort of ways of tracking balances for various accounts are UTXOs, on transaction outputs, and accounts. And so your UTXOs are like what you have on Bitcoin. That was the first design. And it works a lot like cash. So if you think about, you have like a dollar bill and you go to the store and you buy something for 15 cents. You're going to give them the dollar bill and you're going to get the 15 cents back as a receipt that comes back to you. So now you have 15 cents. So let's say you get a couple dollars from your parents because you did the laundry that week, and now you have $3.15. So now you can go out and buy something else, and if it's, say, $3, you can combine, or say $2, or, oh no, I'm sorry, like say $3.05. Now you can combine the UTXO of the 15 cents with your $3 of a new UTXO, and then you would get 10 cents back if it was a $3.05 transaction, and that creates a new UTXO. So it's kind of like a cash-based system where you keep chopping these things up into, $10 bills, $5 bills, change, that sort of thing. And then the account-based system, which is what Ethereum used and what Petrachor uses, is where it works just like a bank account, where you don't think about change. You just simply update an account balance. So if I sent you a wire transaction for, $15.25, I don't have to send you 20 and then get back $4.75. It would just be the exact amount, and your bank account balance would update by that exact amount. And that's, by doing it with the account-based system, it's about 3 times more efficient in terms of blockchain storage requirements than, using the UTXO system.
I agree with that. And I don't think I think a lot of people on this podcast are going to be learning a lot of new things. So, in order for people to become a user, what is the process that they need to do? Do they need to go to your website, which is petrachor.com, and then go on the launch app? Is that what they do?
Yep, absolutely. That's probably the easiest thing to do. We created that app, that web app, so that it's cross-platform. So it'll work on any browser, but it'll also work on like a phone or tablet or desktop laptop, pretty much anything that can run a browser. So that's the easiest way to start using the blockchain and create an account. In order to get a hold of some Petra right now, some PTA, you would need to go to an exchange to do that.
Which exchange is carrying PTA?
Currently, only Hotbit and P2P B2B are the two exchanges that have PTA for exchange.
And is it quite user-friendly?
There should be no questions as far as using the app. It's currently available in English and Chinese. You can change the currency between the dollar, the euro, the yuan, and yen, maybe. So there's a few different currency options. We're going to add, probably 20 or 30 more currency conversion options in the app just to make it easier for people to understand. That way, like, let's say you're using the euro and I'm using the dollar, I can invoice you in whatever currency. When you go into the app and you want to send me, say, 100 euros, you can just type in 100 euros. You don't have to actually try and do the conversion to figure out how many PTA that is. We'll be adding more languages as well so that it just makes it easier for more people to get on there and be able to use it. But no, as far as creating an account or sending and receiving transactions, that should be extremely intuitive. And we're refining that on a weekly basis to make it easier and easier as we go along.
I hope that Crypto and Blockchain Talk has somehow added one more paving slab onto your path of success, and you should really be proud of yourself.
Thank you. I hope everybody gets to enjoy it. That's what it's there for.
For sure. And thank you again, Todd, for coming on to Crypto and Blockchain Talk. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I had fun.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to this week's Crypto and Blockchain Talk. Please remind your friends and family to download this episode on one of the podcasting platforms, which is available on cryptoandblockchaintalk.com. There's a myriad of podcasting platforms listed there, from iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, so many more, all the way down to Verbal. Furthermore, this podcast will be streamed onto Crypto 24 Radio, our sister radio station, playing 24/7 around the world. We also love to hear from you, so if you want to send us some very lovely comments, please go on to our social media platforms of Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you want to really get our attention, we love to hear from you directly. So please email us at education@savvy.digital. That's education@savvy, SAVII digital.com. Again, thank you for tuning in. We know that you have a lot of choice out there to listen to. So when you tune into us, it really does mean something special. Our whole team literally has a big woohoo. So please take care, be safe, and goodbye for now.